in this episode.
Guys, in this episode, we talk about BPOTT. What is BPOTT, Dave?
It is the best player on the team mentality.
We got Pratte in the house. Actually, he's always in the house. He's just sitting right next to us now. We're going to talk a little shop, and then you guys are going to enjoy this conversation. Pratte, there's no texting in class right now. Please put away your phone and
What did
put it
my
on
wife
silent
say
mode.
here?
Dave, same thing. Please.
Hold on, my wife sent me something.
We're not going to be podcasting as we are. We're actually podcasting and texting at the same
Well,
time.
that's pretty cool.
We don't want to do that for sure.
My friend's Braxton's wife, they own Noblest Winery, and they just became the official wine of St. Louis City FC.
Is that our sponsor for today?
Could be. I'll get you a bottle.
I do-
drop that on the podcast. Give me a bottle, Megan.
I do like me some red wine. Who's going to be winning the SEC this year?
LSU, Jack. Yeah. Loaded.
Talking baseball?
Yeah.
Loaded. They got Tommy Tanks and Christian Little.
I think there's
Christian
going to
Little's
be
pretty good.
someone who comes out of the blue, like a
Mizzou?
well, how about the freaking reigning national champs? How are they not in the picture?
They lost everybody, didn't they?
I don't know. They reload. How do you lose? The whole portal is designed for them to win. If you lose right now, you're a real bad coach.
So technically, you're not safe. Like, it's not a typical safe match where it's going to be like, oh yeah, they have these guys coming back. Like, no, everyone's.
Yeah.
They were there before the portal. Now they're gone. Now they get more portal.
Can't lose if you're the big guy. You shouldn't lose if you're the big guy. You imagine that pressure?
Like at mid-major, it makes you feel a little bit better. Like when you go into Big Brother and you beat them.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen very much anymore. I think the days of that happening are going by the way.
Not a 2 out of 3. They're going to get them on a Tuesday.
That might happen.
Oh, yeah. That'll still happen.
Well, yeah, because the Big Brother just puts Johnny Allstaff out there.
Sure. Well,
And it's pretty easy to go through Johnny Allstaff.
unlike on those early 3-gamers in February, early March, they're still going to get a 1 out of the 3. And somebody's going to sneak a 2 out of 3 at Ole Miss or Mississippi State or Alabama or Auburn or something like that just for
Why
because
even play those midweek games?
I hate midweek games. You have to because you got to get the other guys in the games. You got enough guys in your roster, you got to make it last.
Listen, I wasn't always a superstar. That's when I got to play. Okay. Sorry, D1 starter.
That's where I got my innings. You look forward.
I love the Tuesdays.
So we had a pitcher on our staff, and we called him the Oklahoma State Killer because he threw every year against Oklahoma State, and he was just a soft throwing righty that threw from like three quarters
lulled him to
and
sleep.
had a slider and then had a 2-seam that ran, and they were just so frustrated because it was too slow and it just moved all over the place. And so he had I think his record against Oklahoma State's like 6-0 in his career.
For about 15 years straight, we faced Jefferson in a midweek game and lost every one of them, I think. Every time. Like, got him again. Crap.
How does it affect your RPI though?
Oh, it doesn't help at all. No. You
It's
lose.
like when you
It's
look
not
back.
good.
So after you so like when you're on the bus ride home after losing in the semis in the conference, you're like, man, we
Look up
should
Boydsboro. Where are we at now?
we shouldn't have done that.
Dang, we dropped to 84. Shit.
We're really hoping Missouri State wins their conference,
Yep.
which was complete opposite our year because you beat us twice down at our place and at Columbia, and then you end up winning the conference, and that's why we got in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was what? 96? No?
No, 12.
12. That's what it was. Yeah. Anyway,
Does he look that old?
Hey, I know.
Did I play with Steve Acker?
Yes.
All right, the topic that I want to talk about, and Jaws loves interrupting podcasts. Yes, Jaws. It happens at least like once or twice
Oh, yeah.
a quarter.
100%.
So, I want to talk about a mental switch for players, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this. I feel like a lot of players are timid nowadays. whether that's like mechanical culture where like they get into a cage and then
robots.
Yeah, and a coach is like, well, your back knee sucks, your back foot sucks, your hip sucks, your eyes suck. Like, I don't even know why you play this game. And I think it kind of like puts them into defense mode rather than where they're more aggressive and they're willing to take bags, slide hard, dive for baseballs, jump into the wall if they have to, attack the pitcher early. It seems like a lot of guys don't do that nowadays, and then you have to really like kick them into gear and say, hey, you need to get going. I think part of the reason is that they don't think that they're the best player on the team because they have that negative feedback loop that's going in. And what reminded me of this is I was having a text message thread with one of our players, and we were going back and forth. He was on the national team, and I was like, have you ever thought about like BPOTT? And he's like, what's BPOTT? Best player on the team. Like, do you have that mentality? He's like, I've never heard of that. He's like, but I don't want to be boisterous. I don't want to be someone that thinks too highly of myself. And I said, well, yeah, it's a give and take. You have to have a little bit more of bravado to you, and that bravado it's a double-edged sword, and it can slice you up, or you can use that sword and actually slay some dragons. And he's thinking about it as, I need to be more humble. Like I'm all about humble, but I think a lot of players don't think about it as I'm the best player on this team, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to prove it every single day. That's in practice, that's in conditioning, and that's in winning ball games. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, when you brought this topic to me yesterday, I mean, the first thing that I even as a coach went to was, so how would I approach that with a player? If I'm telling him to think of himself as the best player on the team, am I telling him to go be boisterous? Am I telling him to go tell other people that they suck, that I'm the best? Like, what? I was trying to think about it, and I get where you're coming from on it, and I think it's kind of how the player approaches it, right? I mean, you got to go out there with a mentality that you're not going to lose. So you're always going to beat the guy who you're playing against. I mean, and that's earned. You earn that through reps, games, experience, right? But
Jaws comes back in. This is the second interruption.
Let's start that over.
No, we're good. Keep going.
Pratt.
You lose it?
I lost it.
Do we need to get that rap soda for Jaws?
Get the rap soda.
All right, we're gonna make a cut.
Take a little break.
We're gonna make a cut on
here.
this, and then we're gonna come back, and then we'll actually finish this conversation.
All right, we're back.
All right, we're back. Kind of re-kick the conversation off. Best player on the team mentality, bravado. It's a double-edged sword. I feel like players are a little bit too timid nowadays. I think too much information can cause that. I think ignorance does help with being to think that you are the best player on the team, because you have to be a little bit ignorant out there.
Oh, for sure. No, I mean, and to go back, I kind of got sidetracked here, but the mindset side of the best player on the team to me is a good thing. I don't know if players these days, because I think it's a little different. I think the game's more complex. I think that there's so many more points of visibility, whether that's social media or just the way that kids interact these days. I mean, I don't know personally if they know how to take and utilize the best player on the team mindset in the right manner. I think that you talk about, I mean, you've coached a heck of a lot longer than I have. You got guys back in the early 2000s that you coached. If you were to try to establish that type of a mindset, I think you don't have to worry about them taking it the wrong way. I think where now guys are like, well, what am I bragging? Should I tell other people that they suck? Like, that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, it's an instant gratification type of thing right now with as far as that goes with kids. I'm a little bit different. I think I come from the old school part of growing up with coaches that were still in the realm of yelling, motivating, They weren't exactly there to pat you on the back by any means. And you had to be tough. You had to have thick skin. I played for a lot of high school coaches, college coaches. They were like that. And I think that made me better. But it's a different time. It's a different deal. I love I want to be the best player on the team mentality. That's awesome. But there's also needs to be a slice of reality, too, that needs to come with that. I understand that I want to be the best. So today, this week, my goal or my job is to be the best pinch hitter ever. And I want to be the best pinch hitter on the team. Now, that doesn't say that can change in a week, because we used to tell our players all the time, if you don't like your role, change it. If you want to be the best player on the team, you change it. You work hard to be the best player on the team as far as the results and the physical part of it. But if you got a number of 30-some-odd guys thinking that direction, which, unfortunately we've been around a lot of guys in those early 2000s with Missouri and the way things were going, that's what we were. We had a lot of guys that thought they were the best, believed that they were the best, and things started to roll. And you saw the results as far as the wins and the losses part of it, but also, too, in life. I mean, those guys are just tough as nails. And I go to bat with those guys. They weren't the best skilled by any means compared to other teams we played. But give me those 30 dudes, man. We're going to go after it. We're going to slice you up. That was the fun part.
I think about boxing, like old school boxing, like Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. You're starting to get a little bit of sense of it with like what the influencers are doing. I don't think it's like real boxing, in my opinion. Like, yeah, Jake Paul can throw a punch, but like, I wonder what he would do against like the all-time greats. But like those all-time greats, they thought that they were the best before they actually stepped into the ring. Yeah. And I'm watching Netflix documentary with number one tennis player, like the top 150 tennis players. It's called Breakpoint. Or Point Break. I always mess up the name. We were having this conversation.
Yeah, Breakpoint,
I was like Breakpoint. And like, what was it? Point Break. So it's the 80s.
That was
film?
the movie.
Yeah, it's not the 80s film, but the mentality that these tennis players have, like Rafael Nadal knows that he's going to win when he steps into that court, and he has that intimidation factor jumping in. And yeah, you see him when he's at the later end of his career, but if they did some flashbacks to early in his career, and he still had that bravado. And these young tennis players, the one you can tell before the actual start of they did the French Open and then they did the Australian Open, and the ones that were very like not cocky, but they had the confidence going in and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna own this person. They ended up winning.
To me, the biggest thing is perception is reality, and we made it a goal. I know I did with especially our positional players. We wanted to win batting practice. Mm-hmm. We wanted to win infield,
win everything.
Yeah. You wanted to win getting after it and set the tone type of thing. It's mind over matter. It really is. Again, you can be you gotta have some skill, obviously, but mental stuff overcomes a lot of different challenges when you get to the point of having a group of guys come together for a goal at the end of the year or at that weekend or that game or that pitch or whatever it is. Again, perception is reality. If you believe that you're going to do it, more times than not, you're going to do it unless you're just overmatched physically. I mean, it happens. That's the fun part of sports. It's the fun part of the reality of sports is you don't have to be the best to end up, 10-0 or whatever the record might be, or whatever the championship at the end of the year. That's the fun part. You're gonna have the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows, but if you believe that you're gonna do it, more times than not, you do it.
And it was funny throughout my playing career and throughout my coaching career. You run across athletes that just, no matter who they're playing against, it could be a college team, and I could say, "Hey, Nick, we're playing against the St. Louis Cardinals today." And he'd be like, "That's cool. Let's go. We'll win. I don't care doesn't matter." And they just have that. It's almost blissful ignorance to a fault, but it's like
that's how I played.
But it's legitimately that they have that era of confidence in their own abilities and in their own team, and that no matter what, that situation is going to come out in their favor. I mean, I don't know if that's inherently installed in those athletes or earned, or maybe a little bit of a mixture of both, which I personally believe it is. And that's where I think you can get that mentality built up from a young person standpoint. Again, I think the young player and the young athlete these days has just so much information thrown in front of them to tell them that they aren't that athlete, to tell them that they aren't that type of guy, to tell them that their team, because they're going up against the whole ranking system that we deal with, because their team's going up against some dudes that have, 10 D1 commits and they're ranked in the top 20 of perfect game, that all of a sudden they've lost before they've ever stepped on the field.
I like doing this test with a lot of players. I'll say, hey, did you see like whatever the player is at the time, Max Clark video? Did you see Drew Jones video? I have not yet had a player come up to me and get really mad at me and say, why do you keep on talking about this guy? He's not even that good. Like, why are we talking about him? I don't have that player. Where like back in my day,
right,
when we have a mutual friend and he ended up going to your school. I ended up getting pissed off that he was going to your school. And I was like, I'm going to make that a really bad decision. And so like my goal playing was to beat you guys, but then you guys end up beating us. But like that was the mentality, and that's what ended up getting me to Division I. I've had so many players, coaches say like, "You're not a Division I player. You're not that guy." I wish there were more players out there and be like, "Yeah, I get it, Max Clark. Why is everyone talking about him? Like it's not that big of a deal. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go beat him." I don't see that often anymore. I think that TikTok and Instagram, and they see these videos, it becomes like surreal, and they're like, oh, these are like Major League Baseball players. No, they're the same age as you. Like, why are we catering to that? Like, if I was playing right now, I would be like, that guy sucks. I'm gonna go prove that he's not that good.
And it doesn't have to be a speaking thing. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to talk about it.
That's the point.
You don't have to do it. You don't have to. You can have it right here, right in your heart, right in your head, right here. This is where it gets after it. And you can go out there and you can see as a coach and as a player, you can look over there and go, oh, that dude's getting after it. I got to go. Or that dude's going to run me over. Just the way he does things. Just the way you take ground balls in infield. The way you throw the ball around the horn after a strikeout. You can tell with teams they have it or don't. Well, it's real simple. Unless they're just astronomically, physically, okay, yeah, you're really good. Those teams end up winning. That just like, oh, yeah, those guys are getting after it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, because we're verbalizing because it's a podcast, but Pratt never knew that. I just literally verbalized it right now. He had no idea. Even your friend and our mutual friend, he probably has no idea either. Yeah. I just verbalized it, right? But when I was playing, it was literally in my head and in my heart that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make some head rolls. Like, I'm going to make sure that there's going to be some blood and I'm going to end up winning this game.
Let me throw something at you guys, and I want to hear your take on this. I think that there's a real problem today with the way, let's say, amateur teams, in terms of them not necessarily. I think that most teams and most coaches would rather put their team in a situation where they think they have a really great chance of winning a tournament, a game, and they sacrifice maybe putting themselves in a situation where they are going to go up against extremely tough competition where they might lose every game. I think they prioritize the winning over the other side of things, which I think personally, you only get this type of confidence by going up against guys who are extremely good, who are probably better than you at some point. You kind of get your ass kicked, you learn about it, and you go get better so that the next time you face some guy like that, now you compete better. And then you do that over and over and over, and now that appearance of those types of athletes, the Max Clarks of the world, the top teams of the country, those guys are just, who cares? They're nobodies. You earn it that way. But we're not prioritizing that. We're prioritizing putting them in a situation where they can go 4-0 and come home with a trophy and a smile. What are your thoughts?
I agree. You've got to be tested. This whole thing is not about wins and losses by any means. It's the championship at the end of the year, where you want to get to. For a normal high school, college, you want to get to that championship at the end of you want to be at the end of the top of the hill at the very end. In between, you got to take your lumps. It's the same thing in Division I for us, for our high school guys. They've got to be tested. They really do. I well agree with that.
There's the same.
Nothing wrong with, okay, everybody's losing. What'd you learn? I just learned how to lose. No, how do I get better? Exactly. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Well, it's the same thing when you were at the University of Missouri and you guys had those teams that were always in supers and regionals every year and pushing towards the World Series. I mean, I guarantee your non-con wasn't full of just loser teams that you were going to steamroll.
No, our whole philosophy there was, especially early in the year, we had about 4 or 5 weekends early in the year. We had 2 testers, probably most likely on the road because of weather. We go down south and play somebody that's been outside and ready to roll, and it's going to push us. And then we had a couple of weekends at home in early March, probably that would probably guys we could probably handle or compete against probably pretty well, because you wanted to feel good going into conference types of stuff, and you didn't want to play the top guys, and you all of a sudden 2 weekends in a row you're just beat down. Now you're getting into conference, and then you get farther deeper, and you wanted to feel good about yourself, and hopefully your players start heading in the right direction. That was the kind of the thought process behind that. Yeah, no, we're not gonna play the lower end guys all the time. That doesn't do you any good.
Doesn't do anything.
If you think about tennis culture, the top 150 players, what's the difference between the 150th player and the number one player? How does the 150th player become the number one player? They have to show off and show out against those big name players at some point. So moving away and not being ready for that player and kind of just like, oh, I'm gonna get to the edges. I'm gonna play number 100, number 110. No, you want to try to jump and try to hit number 50, number 20, number 5, and then try to build yourself up so that you're able to get to that number one. Where I think nowadays, especially in baseball culture, especially in youth baseball, they go to the edges and they don't want to go and try to test the boundaries of like, hey, where's Max Clark playing? I know we keep on saying his name, but where's Max Clark playing? I want to play against that guy.
But they're so scared. That's the point I'm trying to make. And they might not come out and say it. No player's certainly going to say it. No coach is going to say it. But they are all fearful of going into that overmatched game, losing 20-0, and then what do? And I'm not saying you put I'm by no means saying you need to put your team in that situation day in, day out, like Coach Pratte said. You don't need to get your brains beaten. That's not going to do anything either. But there are points and times in young players' careers where they need to go see a different speed. There are levels to this game. There are levels to tennis. And the higher you get, the faster the game moves, and the harder it is to make quick decisions. And that's the separation of player, right? And you only get that confidence, that best player on the team mentality, that I'm going to beat anybody I take on the field, if you see that speed. You're going to run against someone that's going to be better than you. Why are we fearful of that? Yeah. Why are we? I mean, we're even fearful of like the social media post after the game, that they're going to literally light our handle up because we went in and got our ass kicked by this big time club. Who cares?
Yeah. I think I've shared this story on the podcast, but I'll share it again. We were playing against the 18U Tigers, and my team was 16U, and I knew that these guys were ready. I knew that our team was ready because I was with them from their freshman year all the way up into the 16U year. We had some dudes, we had some guys that were getting some D1 looks already, and we're about to roll up against this 18U squad who had some commitments, and they had the best hitter in Division II baseball, ends up being the future best hitter in Division II baseball. And the parents ended up saying, we're not ready for this game. And they completely just derailed the player's thought process. And the parents, God love you. You're awesome. But you weren't in the battlegrounds in us training, us playing against these games. Like, you saw the games, but you weren't in like and tasting it and like actually seeing those guys' faces and talking with them. Like, their mentality was just right there. And then when we go into the first inning, I was like, all right, we're gonna have Drew go out there. He's gonna toss a gem, and then we're gonna get in the back half of our bullpen, and then we're gonna throw in probably Grotius or whoever. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened is that couple players started believing that they weren't ready, and Drew ended up getting into a jam in the first inning. He was 1 out away from getting out of the jam, so then our offense comes in, which is probably our best suit. I walk out there to talk him through it, and then our catcher comes up, and he's like, I don't even know why we're out here. We shouldn't be out here. And I look at him, and I didn't have a catcher to sub him out. And I just chew him up. I light him up, and I look at everyone's faces, and then you could tell which people were not ready for that big moment, which they could end up defining as like, hey, I can play with these guys. I can play Division I baseball. I can play Division II baseball. The ones that were like locked in, those were the ones that in the future ended up playing college baseball. And the ones that were like fearful and had that, oh my God, what are we going to do? they didn't play. It's funny how those big moments are the make and break, and like you don't realize that you're actually ready for that moment, and you should be preparing for that. That's what ends up getting you to being the best player on the team mentality.
It all boils down to being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's kind of been my motto with our guys over the years. As soon as you get comfortable, well, let's find something else. What makes you uncomfortable? What do you got to get better at? What do we got to do? Who do we have to challenge? Who do we have to compete against? Because as soon as you get comfortable, it's over with. You've got to find ways each and every day to be uncomfortable. That only gets you better. How are you going to get better? Are you going to be complacent to where you're at? Or are you going to, I got to tackle this next hill. I got to go get the next hill. I got to get the next guy. Nope, we'll get these guys the next weekend. Holy smokes, they're good. Yeah, let's go. Bring it on. But as soon as you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's one of my things I was trying to do over the years is make those guys and implore those guys to go, okay, who cares? We're playing the number one team this weekend. Let's go. Let's figure it out. Well, we may lose, but let's give it our best shot. To getting back to how are you going to be the best player on the team? How do you do that? Well, I got to be right now. This guy's the best player on the team. Well, I got to do this better to get over his hump. And again, one of the biggest things, one of the misconceptions on the lineups and who plays and who would I want to be the best. The players make the lineups over the years. Mm-hmm. The players make the lineups. Okay, the coach writes it out. You're the player that shows me each practice day, those 4 days before that weekend, are you ready to go? It could change every week, could change every day. You make the lineup. The coach doesn't make the lineup. We watch practice. We watch games and go, all right, those guys are the guys right here. You don't like it? Get better. Find ways to get around what you need to get around and be uncomfortable with being comfortable or comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's a really good point. Like players do write the lineups.
They do.
And a lot of players think it's politics, but I mean, what's your definition of politics?
I only got one at bat in that game. No, you had 20 at bats all week during practice, and you were terrible. Or you were good. That's why you're in the game.
The best piece of advice that I got from my dad before going to college is treat your practice like games. And that served so well. And like guys would get so mad that I was going so hard at practice. But the guys that were mad were the ones that are sitting on the bench.
Yeah, exactly.
And one point that I also wanted to make is that like I always find this funny. The no name, but he's committed to X school, and then it like intimidates everyone on the team. They don't know the person's name. They have no idea what his background is. They might have some numbers on him, but they don't know how he competes. Yep. They just know like he has a 102 exit velo. He has a 93 mile an hour fastball. Well, it's all relative. Like, how do you? What's 93 really compared if you can go up there and you can see it and you can hit it? Like, I never understood that. Like, yeah, he throws 93. That's great. But there's also guys that throw 99. Wouldn't I want to go play against that 99 guy? Like 93, that's it. That's all you got.
Seeing again, like just going back to your situation with you guys playing the older team or us playing one of the best teams in the country. Those players who were fearful were never taught the value of that situation. They just see that as a complete and utter loss and waste of their time. That's what they see it as. And because they see it that way, they're going to be the same player every year for the rest of their career.
But that's what's worrisome is because how does that play out in the workforce?
It translates right over. You'll.
That's what's scary about that.
It is because you're never put in that situation where it's going to be really, really, really hard. And that you're going to have to figure a way out. And no one's going to help you. It's on you. You have to figure your way out. And if you really want to look back at those types of situations, there are always takeaways. Okay, I just saw a fastball that I'd never seen before. Now the next time I see it, that's going to be a little slower. Maybe I'll get it that time. Maybe I'll work at it. Or now I know what I have to do to get to that. Now I know that speed of the game. Now I know that type of player. And it's like, wow, he pitched me this way. Or holy cow, that shortstop had such range. How did he do that? Like, you don't know until you know. And if you never put yourself in that situation, you're never going to know.
Do you think I don't know where I want to go with this. Do you think that they can't view the positives in any like every situation has a positive? Do you think that it's a mentality
taught that?
I think there's a lot of repercussions that those guys focus on. Not necessarily what do I learn from this thing? What do I get out of this thing? What do I get out of this loss? What do I get out of this win? What do I get out of this the whole weekend? What do I take away from the whole weekend? There's obviously lessons that we learn, but I think there's so many more repercussions these days because there's so much more information. There's so much more social media. I don't want to be that guy to be picked on. I don't want to look like a knucklehead when I kick the ball in the ninth inning. We lose the game. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want nobody to see it. So I think there's way more of that. It's way easier back in the day. There's nothing. You missed the game, you missed the ball, or whatever it is. You made the last. Okay, next game. That was the next game mentality.
That is true. You're not going to be on Snapchat.
No way.
All your friends aren't going to see this crazy bad moment.
It doesn't show up in a newspaper back in the day. It doesn't happen. So there's way more exposure. I think that plays a lot into it too, as far as the self-confidence of the everyday player today.
Because everyone is a news reporter.
Everybody is,
and
a critic.
Oh, for sure. That's where I was going with this. I mean, that's what I mean by it has to be taught. You can't expect a young athlete these days to just have that wherewithal and that mindset of going, man, we just got crushed, but what an experience that I got out of that. you can't.
Thanks, coach. Can I have another?
Yeah, exactly. You can't expect them to have that because all they see on TV or the news or ESPN is this dude embarrassing some other guy.
It's a results-driven world these days.
I've never thought about that. Like, you basically could be on the not top 10 of your friends' Snapchat or TikTok.
Yeah, all of a sudden some dude K's you and some dude at PBR gets it, and now your friends are putting sword in the comments because you just got embarrassed. That's what it is. They don't see the fact, there's no comment in that section saying, man, but you got to face him. What a cool, neat experience, dude. That's great. You just got better. No one says that. So you have to teach it. You have to, what I found.
So you almost have to teach, how in college they give you media days where they taught. It was more like a BS session than anything else, but there was some value in it. So you have to have a media session with your players.
Yeah,
you got to know your cliches.
Yeah, and literally it's a constant battle, and you're not going to get everyone. I mean, I think the third year players are always going to look at you and be like, coach just doesn't want to admit that we suck. Like he's always trying to look at the bright side of things and this and that, or tell us that there's values in this and there's learned opportunities. You're never going to get those guys, but you're going to get some other guys that are going to be like, hold on a second, that makes sense. I'm going to go apply it this way. Okay, let's move on.
Honesty is still the best by any means. Hey, dudes, those guys kicked our butts today. They were really good. But you know what? We got them at this point. We did this, and we did this, we did this. That's what we need to learn. But you know what? Hey, you just got to tip your hat. Tomorrow we get them again. But today they got us. You know what? They were good. They were better than we were today.
Do you think players hear that?
Oh, yeah, they hear it. But they want to listen to it, but they hear it. Most of them hear it. And then there's obviously the few that are like, I'm mad all night because we lost 14-1.
When do you think it starts resonating with them? Like, oh yeah, coach is right.
It takes a while. You got to, like you said, you got to go through those experiences. It may take a number of years before you get that, because especially in Little League, when you grow up, you play 1,000 games every summer, and you want to go 52-1. You want to get all the trophies. Well, for you guys, I used to have 1,000 trophies in my room. And,
yep.
And a number of years ago, a long time ago, throw them all away. You're going, why am I keeping all these things? And it was like you're thinking that was a lot of fun. It's a lot of hardware that I don't really. What do we do? What do we? Whatever. I could care less about it. But it gets back to that results-driven world. Until you realize the ones that you lost, the ones you win, kind of equal themselves out. Then okay, here we go. I get that. Again, it takes a couple of years. It may take guys less than that.
That's the tough part about coaching is when you say stuff like that and you know that it's the right thing and you know it's the honest thing. And then you see the faces of your players, and it's blank, and they look disappointed, and they look sad, and frustrated and mad, and they feel like they've been kind of duped, or they feel like they're just not good enough. That's the hardest part about as a coach is being able to completely repeating it again if it happens again, or keep on staying positive. Because having 12 dudes look at you and just ensure disappointment and being like, man, we're not that good, but in all honesty, they've made progression, and it's I want you to still have that mentality, still go out there, still have that best player on the team mentality and go out there again. You just have to keep on believing in that. And just try. That's the worst part is like that
And especially
bad day.
this game, because you play so many games. You
Test
can't do
you.
that in football. You can't do that maybe in basketball. But baseball, you play so many games. You have so many opportunities to learn from that and get back to that. It's a relative thing, obviously. I get it. But I think that's the beauty of our game. You lose one game at 10 o'clock, guess what? You're playing again at 12. What do you got to do next time to beat these guys? That's the fun part, because you can go, okay, let's go. That one's done. Mm-hmm. They were better. We need to get better at this. Let's go get the next person. That's the fun part of our game, I think.
Anything else you guys want to wrap up on this?
No, I love the mentality side of it, and I think there's some real value from a coaching standpoint to try to apply this with your players, and if anything, you're teaching them that confidence is a real asset to have. That you need to have that confidence no matter what situation you're in, no matter what the past was. You have to have that confidence in your abilities and everything that you've built up to that point that you're going to succeed and win in every situation. And again, that's a constant teaching aspect of a coach. You have to do that. You have to be able to provide all the information, all the reasons as to why you should be confident, because the game is certainly not going to provide those. The game's going to provide you a million reasons why you shouldn't be confident. Because if you look at batting averages, if you look at fielding statistics, if you look at everything else, it's built on failure, and you fail a lot. So as a coach, instilling these types of values, instilling this type of mindset, the best player on the team mindset, I think there's a lot of importance to that.
One of the cool quotes on the Netflix documentary that I cannot know what the name is, Point Break.
Breaking Point. Break.
The first comment in the episodes was, I think it was Sharapova that said it, that everyone chokes. It's just a matter of how you handle the choke. And I was like, damn, like everyone's afraid of choking, but in all honesty, everyone is going to choke.
True.
One of the cool things that, thinking about this, looking back on my son's Little League basketball coach back over in Columbia, one thing they had on their shirts, on their pregame shirts, is iron sharpens iron. And, and it resonates with me now. It did then, yes. But you're thinking about this conversation here, and within your team, within your culture, within your group, if this guy thinks he's the best player and this guy thinks he's the best player, they're going to compete. They're going to compete to be at the top of the hill. Iron sharpens iron. And then all of a sudden, now you got a group of guys that do that, and it just goes off the charts so much. It's a blast. And again, I was so fortunate to be lucky to be part of that era of that group that went a bunch of regionals in a row and won one, and it was so much fun because, again, we didn't have a group of guys that were the best players. We had a group of guys that were the best competitors and wanted to be the best players on the team.
That's how you create all-stars.
Exactly.
That's the only way you can create all-stars. Mm-hmm. The last point I want to make is what Pratte said in the middle of it was, this is not something that you go out and you just promote and say, I'm the best player on the team. One thing that I did was I actually wrote BPOTT on the bottom brim of my hat in really small letters that no one could see, but it was just a reminder to me that when I made a mistake out in the outfield and there was no one to talk to, I'm literally out in center field by myself. I mean, like, shit, I kind of messed that up. Or if I'm about to go take my at bat, I see that little acronym, and it really triggers like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm going to do it. And then it starts really reigniting of like, I'm going to show that this guy didn't believe in me. This guy didn't believe in me. This guy didn't believe in me. And I'm going to actually go out and prove that point. So it's just keeping it in your heart and keeping it in your mind and just keep on banging away and trying to find the other iron that sharpens your iron. Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. Please give us a subscribe, give us a review. And then also you can follow us on Twitter. Pratte, what's your Twitter handle?
We have a Twitter?
Dave's is David_Berkby, and then mine is at Spiker Helms.
You want me to look up?
I think it's at
Twitter?
Pratte_2.
Hold on.
I think it's at Pratte. Here, let's see if I keep on. I type it in a lot. It's at Pratte
There's a two in there. There's 2 in there.
Yes.
Yes.
I got it right.
There you go.
So it's at ePratt2.
I look at it every day, just not mine.
I asked a kid the other day. I was like on the national team because I wanted to tag him, and he tweets all the time. I'm gonna go, hey, what's your handle? He's like, oh crap, I don't know what it is. I'm like, you're on it constantly. How do you not know what your handle is? It is what it is. All right, guys, we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks.